Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, pressure is growing on Hamas as Israel keeps up its military offensive against the terrorist group. And the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has restarted its operations, giving Palestinians the food they need and preventing Hamas from stealing it. And what could be the increasing possibility of a military strike on Iran's nuclear program as the talks between the United States and Iran appear to be at a standstill? Here at home, President Donald Trump sending in the National Guard as riots break out in Los Angeles over the enforcement of operations against illegal immigrants and against the wishes of the governor of California. And the aftermath of the split in the United Methodist Church over issues of same-sex marriage and the ordination of LGBTQ plus clergy. We're going to bring you a look at the impact on both sides. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Monday, June 9th, going to begin this half hour in the Middle East where the possibility of a military strike against Iran may be increasing and the pressure on Hamas is growing. From Israel's military offensive and over the weekend, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation resumed its operations after a brief pause. As Chris Mitchell now reports from Jerusalem, the effort allows Gazans to get food and bypass Hamas.
On Sunday, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation distributed 1.6 million meals, totaling more than 10 million since its operation began. In an interview with CBN News, GHF Executive Chairman Reverend Johnny Moore stated its prime mission.
It's really simple. Feed Gazans. That's the mission. That's all we're there to do, and our goal is to do it efficiently, to do it safely, to help as many people as we possibly can.
Moore says the response from Gaza's civilians has been overwhelming.
As an American, one of the things that's just so encouraging to me is Gazans spontaneously saying, "Thank you, America. Thank you, President Trump. Thank you to the United States." They understand that this aid is coming from in effect, the American people. Okay, it's coming from us. It's an incredible thing and by the way, it's a brave thing for these Gazans to do, to say thank you, America, because the truth of the matter is, for a long time, the first victims of terrorists in that strip of land have been the Gazans themselves, these Palestinians.
Military correspondent Yaakov Lapin says the GHF represents a serious danger to Hamas rule inside Gaza.
And the reason that that's very harmful to Hamas is because it takes away the dependency of the Gazan civilians on Hamas, and that removes its political power. This is also a financial blow because Hamas sells excess aid that it hijacked until now on Gaza's market. So that was terror financing money that they're now being deprived of.
On Sunday, the IDF revealed a Hamas command center located under one of Gaza's main hospitals. The military removed the body of Hamas leader Mohammed Sinwar, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike from the tunnel network.
This is the entrance we opened for a very big command and control compound, Hamas command and control compound. Yet this is another example of the cynical use of Hamas, using civilians as human shields, using civilian infrastructure, hospitals again and again, find those infrastructure.
Dufresne also defended Israel's practice of moving Gazans out of dangerous areas.
One of our methods is moving the population for their own safety. We are moving them from one place to another for their own safety. Hamas is killing them. Hamas is using them as human shield day after day, time after time.
An Israeli media report claims to shed more light on the relationship between Qatar and Hamas. Israeli Channel 12 reports the IDF uncovered documents in Gaza showing Hamas and Qatar worked together to thwart President Trump's deal of the century, a 2019 peace plan between Israel and the Palestinians. The report says Hamas leader Khaled Mashal told the Emir of Qatar, "We need to cooperate in order to resist the deal of the century and thwart it." Another major Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, reportedly said that funds from Qatar are, quote, Hamas's main artery. The report contends Qatar funded Hamas for years, with millions of dollars allowing it to survive and carry out October 7th. Meanwhile, negotiations between the U.S. and Iran are at a standstill. Texas Congressman Michael McCall says he met recently in Israel with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
There's no question in my mind coming out of that meeting what Mr. Netanyahu's intentions are, and that is to strike Iran when the negotiations go bad. The question is going to be, what will be the United States' role?
The breakdown in talks hinges on Iran's insistence that it can continue enriching uranium. Well, President Trump says they can't. Ephraim?
Chris, let's begin there. Are we at a tipping point when we talk about U.S. and Iran's talks, and are they failing? Could that mean a military strike against Iran's nuclear program is actually now on the horizon?
Well, Ephraim, it just seems like it's getting closer and closer. There's been no diplomatic progress in the last week or so. The two sides seem to be set in what their positions are. Enrichment, yes or no? Obviously, Iran is saying they have a right to enrichment. President Trump is making it clear they don't. And so Israel right now is waiting for this diplomacy to play out, see how long it may play out. President Trump said, about a week or two ago, told Netanyahu not to attack while the talks are going on. But right now they seem stalled. So it really does look like a military strike seems more likely. Israel's been preparing it for many, many years, and I'm sure they're ready. The question is Congressman McCall said, will the U.S. be part of that operation if and when it happens?
Big question indeed. Let's talk about Israel's war now against Hamas in Gaza. How much progress is Israel making?
They're making slow, systematic, and steady progress, Ephraim. They have 5 divisions. They're operating in the Gaza Strip. They're going and they're literally destroying the terror infrastructure of Hamas. They're realizing that one of the 3 buildings in one of the cities there in Gaza, Khan Yunis, is booby-trapped. They're destroying underground tunnels, and they're trying to avoid, Ephraim, this asymmetric guerrilla warfare that Hamas would love to engage in. So they're controlling more and more territory and making significant progress. So Gideon's chariot seems to be working by squeezing Hamas into less and less area that they control.
How significant is this report about Hamas's ties to Qatar?
Well, it's very significant, and it seems to connect the dots more and more between Qatar and Hamas. They have been funding Hamas for years, and as it said in our report, Ismail Haniyeh said that Qatar's their main artery. They contributed millions of dollars a month to Hamas. And, back several years ago, Ephraim, actually, Israel facilitated some of this funding and unwittingly seemed to contribute to building up Hamas as a major terror infrastructure because they allowed that cash to go in. That seemed to be a one way to keep the Gaza Strip quiet for years. But unfortunately and tragically, we saw what happened on October 7th. And so Qatar is affiliated with the Muslim Brotherhood. There are other Middle East countries that designate Muslim Brotherhood as a terror group. Egypt has done this, for example. And so many of these other Middle East countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE really a suspect of what Qatar has done and how it has so many ties to terror groups, including Hamas.
We saw Johnny Moore from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation in your piece and heard from him. What impact is the organization having on Hamas?
Well, right now, this, along with Gideon's chariots, is having a huge impact on Hamas. It's really undermining their control of the population. It's undermining their finances and their funding. Some of the people in Gaza are turning away from Hamas because they can get free aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So they're turning away from Hamas. Also, some people turning against Hamas. So this is a very big development that's happening in the Gaza Strip, along with the Gideon's chariots. As I said, this two actions going on, these 2 developments are really making Hamas a very, very dangerous for them, very serious threat to their rule. And then we see that their main leader, Mohammed Sinwar, he was killed. So they seem to be almost leaderless right now. And Israel is just kind of grinding away at their rule. And this contributed to by this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation.
Last question for you. Israel is using a new laser defense system right now. What can you tell us about that system?
Well, we just had an interview just a few minutes ago with an Israeli general who's part of this program to bring laser technology to the battlefield. He was telling us this is a game changer. This is revolutionary. This is actually a new era of warfare. For the first time in history, Israel actually deployed lasers in the war against Hezbollah. They destroyed some of their UAVs. It's actually 3 layers. They have a smaller laser that can do smaller UAVs, and then they have another one called the Iron Beam that should be deployed later this year. It's far less expensive, so Israel's on the cutting edge of this new technology. It's really going to be a game changer in how warfare is done. In terms of less expensive, you know, one of these interceptors from, say, the Iron Dome could be $50,000. A laser can be about as little as $5.
Indeed. Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much for your insight. Looking forward to hearing from you again in the days ahead this week. Coming up here at home, the battle between rioters and law enforcement in Los Angeles, California, as President Trump has sent in the National Guard over the objections of the governor of California. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. President Donald Trump is leaving open the possibility of sending the Marines to Los Angeles amid growing protests that are erupting in violence in the city. At least 3 officers have been injured and more than 40 people arrested in the riots over enforcement of operations against illegal immigrants. CBN's Dale Hurd has our report.
President Trump called up National Guard troops in response to protests that turned violent over the weekend. Last night, those protests continued.
Get back! Get back!
The Los Angeles Police Department declared an unlawful assembly Sunday night as protesters failed to disperse in the downtown area. Rioters blocked a major freeway and set cars on fire as law enforcement used tear gas, rubber bullets, and flashbangs to control the crowd. Protesters launched fireworks toward police.
We had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable.
L.A. Chief Jim McDonnell called the violence disgusting.
We are overwhelmed.
President Trump says he's not ruled out Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's suggestion of mobilizing active-duty Marines if the clashes continue.
We see danger to our country and to our citizens, and we'll be very, very strong in terms of law and order.
California Governor Gavin Newsom blamed Trump for the riots.
Donald Trump has created the conditions you see on your TV tonight. He's exacerbated the conditions ever since he announced he was taking over the National Guard. An illegal act, an immoral act, an unconstitutional act.
Newsom also took aim at Trump immigration czar Tom Homan on X. Trump's border czar is threatening to arrest me for speaking out. Come and get me, tough guy. Republicans in Washington defended the president's decision.
Do you have any problem or any concerns about the president sending in the National Guard to a place where local authorities say that they're not needed and could be harmful?
I have no concern about that at all. I think the president did exactly what he needed to do.
President Trump is putting the safety of the communities that are being impacted by these riots and by these protests that have turned violent. And he's putting the safety of our law enforcement officers first.
Meanwhile, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia, whose controversial deportation earlier this year sparked a Supreme Court order to facilitate his return, is now back on U.S. soil. He faces federal charges of alien smuggling and conspiracy. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, the split that rocked the United Methodist Church over the issues of same-sex marriage and the ordination of LGBTQ plus clergy. We're going to bring you a look at the impact of the breakup 3 years later. We got the story for you. It's coming up right after this. It's been 3 years since the United Methodist Church split. 7,600 churches in the U.S. have left over the issues of sexual orientation and ordination. CBN's Paul Petit looks back at one of the largest church breakups in American history, the impact it made on the denomination and churches that decided to leave.
2022 was easily the most difficult year of ministry.
Reverend Clark Atkins pastors First Church in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, one congregation that decided to break away from the United Methodist Church.
There's some members that are missing, that aren't here. But it does feel renewed. It feels more joyous.
3 years ago, the Global Methodist Church, a theologically conservative alternative to the United Methodists, officially launched with just a few dozen congregations. Today, it oversees more than 4,600 churches worldwide, most of which split from the United Methodists.
The Global Methodist Church really offered the closest thing for our theology and the culture of our church.
At the heart of the split, differences over same-sex marriage and the ordination of LGBTQ clergy. Tracy Malone is president of the United Methodist Church Council of Bishops.
There's no longer the fighting. There's no longer, I would even say, the distraction around the differences, particularly related to human sexuality.
But for Reverend Atkins and many others, the issue wasn't simply about sexuality.
I knew about bishops that were violating the discipline, and I thought that's just inexcusable.
Dr. Daniel Bennett teaches political science at John Brown University and wrote Uneasy Citizenship, Embracing the Tension in Faith and Politics. He says the church divide reflects broader shifts in the country.
This is a really good example of these cultural expectations and changes in our culture and social environment then seeping into congregations. It's not like churches have been driving these conversations in our broader culture. I would argue it's much more likely that it's culture that are shaping some of these conversations in the churches.
In the years since the split, First Church has seen significant growth.
We saw immediately in the first year an increase in worship attendance of about 15%, another 13% the year after. I think this year it was over 10%.
The first 10 minutes in that sanctuary, you feel it?
Oh, yeah.
It's a totally different atmosphere than when it was a supper club. That wasn't working.
And the growth isn't just local. Reverend Atkins now oversees 300 disaffiliated churches, and he says they're witnessing an overall rise in attendance, baptisms, and professions of faith. And the United Methodist Church is also moving forward. In May, it unveiled a new mission statement: love boldly, serve joyfully, and lead courageously.
It means that it embraces and includes people of every age, nation, race, gender, and walk of life.
The church's inclusive approach, like a new queer theology course, has led to a rise in LGBTQ laity applying for ordination.
They are wanting to be a resource to clergy and laity to help them understand what it means to be queer and whatever that theology is around queerness.
This kind of thing absolutely makes me relieved that we did leave.
For First Church, the decision to leave the denomination came after a series of meetings, prayer, and votes.
And some congregations are still recovering just from the pain that they experience. But I would say now that we are on the other side of disaffiliation, there is a greater sense of unity and a greater focus on our discipleship.
Church has gone through a lot. I've seen a lot of growth, but I can say that the spirit of this church is probably the healthiest it's been in a long time.
3 years later, churches on both sides are finding renewed purpose in the places where they feel most at home.
That's a tale as old as the church itself in many respects. There won't be one unified church until the second coming, but hopefully we strive for that process of sanctification in the meantime.
In Siloam Springs, Arkansas, Paul Petit, CBN News.
We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Monday. Stay with us. Time now for your Monday Motivation, and today I leave you with this thought. The gift of the Holy Spirit was Jesus' promise to every believer. That promise comes with power. Don't waste it. Now is the time to use His power. With that word, I encourage you to make this a marvelous Monday. And be sure to have yourself a wonderful, power-filled week. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online, cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We'll see you back here tomorrow.